It's time for the chaos to cease.
Time to open yourself to peace.
From the hours you've put in.
To the next shift you begin.
From the endless pursuit of release.
That finds the worst unleashed.
Transform the ugly into a win.
Get to know your shield within.
Welcome.
Welcome
to the Shield Within, episode 7. No, 8. Episode 8.
There we
go.
There we go.
What? I just lost my fucking mind, didn't I?
Already.
Yes.
You caught it pretty quick, though.
Yeah, well, we did that, Dad. All right, thanks for joining us. I'm Mark the Cop. My esteemed colleague to my right is Dr. David. He's not really David, but we're really excited this episode because we have our first ever esteemed guest.
Absolutely.
And my therapist, my full-time therapist now.
Awesome.
It's like having both my favorite dads in the room together.
Wow. What's not to like about that?
Yeah,
That's right.
We have Jerry Knapke with us. And welcome, Jerry. Welcome to the Shield Within. We appreciate you being here.
It's great to be here, Mark. Never been on a podcast before, but it's great being with you two guys.
Oh, we are
And I
super.
really appreciate the intent of your podcast to reach out to people to help them understand trauma better,
Right.
and to be able to cope with it and master, or not master, but overcome it. So I think it's a great inspiration for a podcast.
Well, kind of our thing here is that I wanted to share with the world my journey and the fact that therapy doesn't have to be just that, oh my God, overwhelming gloom. Although it gets there, and I know you guys have seen clients that way, but therapy can be fun. You know, I've had fun when I was David's client. You and I have fun. I mean, there's sometimes, we just sit there and shoot the shit. Mm-hmm. But, the purpose of it is, or kind of our motto is what? Healing through humor.
Right.
To use my wit and banner to show people that, hey, you can get through this. And with the proper, resources and the proper, get to a good therapist. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, there's 2 awesome therapists sharing the microphone in the studio with me today. And I really appreciate you both being here. You guys do a lot of healing. And it's from the feedback it's kind of funny because when I go to Jerry's office, I go different times of the day. Mm-hmm. And you never know who you're going to run into.
That's right.
One day I showed up, and that's one of my officers, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Oh, same thing you are.
Yes, but I think it's great, Mark, that you and Dave are destigmatizing therapy. There's nothing wrong with you going therapy. I consider myself almost a coach. But living life, we all get hurt. We all get bruised. And therapy means there's something wrong with you, and that is a very bad misconception. Therapy is, I'm okay the way I am, but I know I can do better. I know I can feel better. I can behave better. And you don't have to be stuck with old beliefs about yourself, old feelings you're stuck in.
Right.
So therapy, how you're describing it, Mark, is it's fun. It's enlivening, and it invites you to a whole new level of living. You don't have to be stuck with the old beliefs about yourself.
No, exactly. And
come into your power.
Power on. How many times have we said that? When Jerry and I work together, we always start our sessions with prayer, and then we prayer. Mm-hmm. You both know that
Holy water.
Yeah, we have holy water. Mm-hmm. To lost my train of thought. Anyway, I'm a religious person, and,
right.
and faith is very important to me.
Right.
And I just started back down my faith path when I started seeing you in 2008, so you got away from it. And kind of the things we talked about on episode 7, we're talking about going back to the things that you like to do. And we talked about the 4 Fs, which is your friends, family, faith,
and favorite activities.
Energizing.
Oh, yeah. And I was just speaking with a colleague, who's also a patient of David's, that was talking about how he, has really gotten away from doing the things that he loved to do. Just found himself going to work and going home and just being a troll. He said, I didn't want to be around anybody. I called him a couple times, and I know what he's going through because I've been a bit of an isolationist myself here within the last 30 days. I just don't do anything. I don't go anywhere. I don't want to do anything, and I don't want to go anywhere, even though the phone's been ringing. But he felt the need to call me and say, hey, dude, I'm sorry. I'm just really in a shit spot right now. And I said, well, hey, man, what can I do to help?
Yeah, we can talk about that later as far as the stage of his nervous system. He was sort of in shutdown.
Yeah. Well, he just got some things going on in life, and he's just like, I need to make some decisions. I'm tired of feeling the way I'm feeling, so it's just time to make some decisions. So before we go any farther, let's pay some bills. Okay, if you are on Facebook, we would love for you to stop by our Facebook page, which is Facebook.com/The Shield Within. You can also go to our website, www.theshieldwithin.com. If you are in need, we have 2 great therapists on the air with us today. One of them is lessonslearnedcoaching.com. Lessonslearnedcoaching.com. That's where you can reach out and touch Dr. David, or go to our website, theshieldwithin.com, hit the coaching button, take you right to him. Jerry, do you have anything? Are you looking for clients, or are you looking for to step back some?
I am not actively taking new clients. I'm
okay,
not.
That's fine. We were talking about that. Give that microphone there a little turn. There you go. Yeah, and Jerry is in the process of stepping back. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah, you're not
trying to get down to 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And also, I'm specialized in trauma work, so I'm being somewhat selective in terms of the clients I do take. Because I want clients who are currently suffering from some type of trauma and doing work with them. So I'm not only cutting back hours, but also being more selective in terms of the clients that I take.
Right. And it's like what David and I were talking offline. Everybody's buried. There's so much work out there for everybody to do.
Oh my, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is your calendar full?
Way more work than there is humans to do it, but I still have room, and I'm still taking some new people. I had a new referral yesterday. So I'm still having a great time and taking new people in. And I know Jerry is very typical, unfortunately, for all the field. If you're doing trauma work, your schedule's full. You have a waiting list. You have people that want to see you, hear your waiting list, and want to see somebody else because it's too long. And that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, but we could use a lot more of people like us available for those folks who need it.
But if you are in need, if you want to send us an email or a Facebook message, we would be able to get you to someone.
Absolutely.
And David has a nationwide network that he deals with. Then he can be able to help you out there.
Right. Yeah.
So here we go.
All right, bro.
Have our first guest?
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to see you finally
and meet you. What an honor to be the first guest.
That's right, bro.
Shield Within.
Wow. You are popping the cherry.
Yeah.
The pressure is on.
We're going to sit back and have some fun.
Or off.
Or off. Yeah, there we go.
There you go. All right, Dave, hit me.
All right, bro. My first curiosity, since we just met especially, and this is probably something I'm going to ask every therapist we have on. Why become a trauma therapist? I mean, you've got plenty of mental health needs everywhere you go in the world. Depression, anxiety, divorces, kids, whatever. What led you to do trauma as a focus of your work professionally?
I didn't choose that. I found myself drawn to it. Never really thought of that question before, David. But what led me to it was talk therapy. For the first several years I did therapy, people weren't getting better. We can talk about our pain forever. We can psychoanalyze it. We can even describe it in a book. But we still feel, if we're compulsive or addictive, we're not solving it just by talking back and forth. I call that mental masturbation, perhaps. Just talk. And what I learned after 4 or 5 years is if you don't make that journey from your head to your heart and get out of your abstract thinking about your problem in life and get into your body and into a feeling element, you're not going to get better. If you want to stay comfortable up in your head and that, it's okay, but you're not going to get better. So that is what drew me towards trauma work. And then incidentally, I suffered a lot of trauma as a child, early childhood. And And when I did my original therapy back in the 90s, no one recognized it. None of my therapists for the first 10 years recognized my PTSD.
Right.
You know, they called it abandonment. They called it different things.
Right.
Anxiety disorder, depression. Of course, 30 years ago, we didn't know much about PTSD. We didn't know near as much about PTSD. But at any rate, you become, as you know, David, you want to be called David or David? I'm sorry.
I'm open to anything.
Okay,
I
Dave.
respond to all common obscenities.
I've always heard it's David Buchanan, so you're David to me. But we, as therapists, are drawn to a lot of what helped us, we help other people with. So since I was so traumatized growing up, it was natural that I was able to use the healing work I did to apply to others.
Beautiful.
But in answer to your question is, when talk therapy wasn't working back in 6 or 7 years ago, I first trained in EMDR and started EMDR and found that helpful. And then in 2018, I did a 6-day workshop on hypnotherapy and signed up for a 40-day intensive training program with the Wellness Institute out of Issaquah, Washington.
Okay.
So we met for over a period of 2 years, 5 days at a time, twice out of Washington State. And I got certified as an advanced hypnotherapist. And again, that only deepened my knowledge and awareness of how our subconscious mind drives our life.
Yeah.
Our conscious mind, even consciously, I don't believe that I'm worthless. I don't believe that I'm this. But if you believe it subconsciously, you're going to act it out. Yeah. So that's why. So I was drawn to trauma because talk therapy I didn't find effective, and number two is I realized, hey, I was traumatized and I worked through PSD and didn't even know it.
And that's an incredible experience to have in your pocket and in your heart, in your head, that you work through this yourself, and you can relate to the experience the person's going through, which makes a tremendous difference, I think.
I think that's true of many of us.
Absolutely
in
right.
the field.
Yes, I think
it's
so.
It's kind of an inside track. And also,
well put.
The pain that we suffered, we have a tremendous need to reach out and touch, invite others to heal that pain because we know how bad it was.
Oh, God,
for us. So it's an interesting motivation, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that's how I ended up in trauma.
Beautiful, beautiful. I know you're full, but I'm curious, like, if there's a fireman in Sydney listening to this, and he's realizing, you know what, I think I want to check Jerry out. He calls your office. Do you refer him somewhere? How do you deal with that when you're full?
I have a waiting list, and I take it by date who calls.
Okay.
And eventually, I will work him in. And also, I have a special place in my heart for first responders. So they would, in a sense, he would get preference, or she would get preference. In terms of that. Yeah. So again, if people want to stick in there and hang in there, I can work them in. Excellent. And I don't advertise at all anymore. So I don't. Used to be I was in psychology, I would get calls all the time. So now I don't advertise at all. So when people call, and I have a few docs who refer to, I just put them on a waiting list, and if they want to get in, also I always give them other referrals too. If you want to see someone else, you can see X, Y, and Z. If not, when I have an opening, I'll get you in, and we'll do some good work.
Exactly. Roughly, like if I were to call today and I was going to be on your waiting list, how long would I have to wait?
Anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months.
Dude, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
I think
listen to you guys. Coming from a guy that's in crisis, and I call you, I don't know, Jerry. When I called you, when did I start seeing you? April 2015.
Yes.
Yeah, is that when we started? Which was like
sometime in 2015.
Couple of months after you dumped me.
And I forgot your file, Mark. I was going to bring your
file. No, you
leave
leave the file at the office. I got enough fucked up shit. We got plenty of shows to talk about my fucked up shit. But I only think I think it was only 2 weeks after I called you. You said I got an appointment. Yeah. I got a cancellation on this day. Can you do it? And I said I'll be there.
But my schedule is so variable. To get a spot, like I may get someone in 2 or 3 weeks today, but I'll say I don't have a regular spot for you. I only have, there was a cancellation this morning. I'll get you in. And once a spot opens, a weekly or bi-weekly spot, they get that spot until they don't show up.
Gotcha.
They're allowed to show up if they miss twice or 2 out of 3 week times or whatever. Then they lose the spot. But they when a spot opens, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I see 6 people a day, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. So once they get a spot, they're in. So
Right.
that could be, and again, it varies. Sometimes you're just really busy and nothing opens up. And I always say no one's graduated. As soon as someone graduates,
Yeah.
another spot opens. So so it could be as quick as 2 weeks, and it might be a couple months.
Well, I find that really encouraging, given what I've heard from some other folks in the area, which makes me want to say to anybody listening, pay attention to this gentleman, because 2 weeks to 2 months isn't bad at all.
No.
And he's got a special place in his heart, mind, and professional spirit for first responders. So 2 weeks, 2 months, we can get through. You can get through that long.
Sure, I
And
think it took me 6 weeks to get in and see you.
if not that longer.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you just
Let me help you here. There you go.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the
and
thought,
I did
David.
like you did,
Yeah.
a standing appointment, same day, same time of day.
Right.
And it just made life easier to predict for the patient and for me. And it kind of guaranteed them a spot until we got done, till the graduation came. I like
Right.
that word.
I never thought
And
of it
it
that way.
invites
graduation.
them to be committed to that time. Do you really want to work on this? You really want to get better? Then you need to show up.
Yeah, and it's work, boys and girls. Let me tell you, if you're, I think finding a therapist, one that you click with, and there's a huge difference between when you don't, and within the first 20 minutes.
Right.
Or maybe a session or two sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just not feeling it, you're not feeling that comfort, it's perfectly okay to say, hey, this isn't working
Right.
for me.
Right.
And a lot of people's like, oh, will they be mad at me? And I'm like, well, no, they're not going to be mad at you.
They're
This is
going to
what they
help.
do.
They're going to help you find another therapist.
Yeah. That's the thing about therapy is that go somewhere where you can feel safe. That's
Right.
number one.
Right.
And get this shit over with.
Yeah.
Because I really want to say it was easy. It's not easy. You have to be willing to do the work, and there's no growth without pain. There's no learning without pain.
Aces.
And so you just got to go through the pain and be prepared to walk through the house of pain. Don't, because right now you're dwelling in it.
Mm-hmm.
You're living in it. I lived in it for a long time,
Yes.
and I was tired of it.
Yeah.
So, but
It does take a lot of energy, Mark. I tell you, if you do the deeper the work you do, I tell people if you're just really overwrought with stress and have so much going on, it's not the ideal time to do trauma therapy because it requires you to go deep, and it takes a lot of energy, a lot of attention to bring the healing about.
So oddly enough, when we had our 2-hour session and we did EMDR last, David and I had a show that afternoon. I felt like
Yes.
I wasn't as bad as the first time when David and I did it,
Right.
but I was fucked up for good 4 days. And I like to give the analogy is that like I cleaned the rocks in my fish tank because God, we stirred up a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
But it also led to clarity.
It's like burning out the old days. We used to, didn't your spark plugs get carboned up? You'd blow
Oh,
out,
yeah.
You would just
Yeah, you got to
run
blow
in
the
and
carbon out
drive
of the old car. Yeah.
90 miles an hour to blow the old carbon out. So EMDR does clarify and stirs things up. And I always like to use the analogy that if you look at your bedroom closet and it's a mess, everything's shoes everywhere, shirts, pants. That's how trauma is before you do EMDR. EMDR helps you to reprocess it because the experience is over. It's been over for years in most cases, but you have not experienced it. You were dissociated at the time. So by doing the EMDR, doing the hypnotherapy, you are simply what, David? Reprocessing what's already way over because
Right.
you weren't there. You went up and out emotionally, and you were not there. Thank God you weren't, because it would have overblown the circuits. Your circuit board would have been overblown. So thank God your psyche protected you.
Yeah.
And after EMDR, Mark is saying the even though it's a mess at first, the closet's a little better straightened out.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You eventually get everything folded up and put away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything gets organized and you put it
Right.
back.
And it's over. That's it with trauma. It's over. The experience, the memory is there. There may be a charge that comes back, but you get back to feeling yourself much sooner. It can be those of us when we're in trauma. It can take days to get back to feeling ourself. It took me earlier in my life, even in my 30s and 40s, it would take me 3 or 4 days to get back to myself. Once I was triggered and you went back to that dark place, look out, because you're back there. But once you do the work, you sometimes go back there.
Yes.
But then you get out of it in a hurry and you're back to your old self. What do you call that, David? What's that time period between the trigger and back to normal? I forget. There's different terms for it. Anyway, it's just the amount of time it takes you from the trigger that made you feel the way you used to feel and back to being your old self.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I don't know. I think you described it really well. That it's a matter of refiling, putting things where they belong. You can't undo the experience, but you can put the experience somewhere where it doesn't get in the way anymore. And why would you go back and think about it? Why would you want to go back and refer to it? You don't want to. So unless something does pull it up, you don't go back there and think about it. You go live your life and enjoy and create and thrive. If something triggers you, you know, okay, I got some tools for this. I know what to do with this now. And you may visit a dark place, but it doesn't mean you have to stay for very long. More like an overnight than a weekend visit, you know.
Wow, that's the difference between suffering and living a miserable life and living a good life.
Right.
And in time, what's your experience, David? In time, I think there is, as we continue to let go, there is less and less juice about whatever the trauma was. But as you say, originally, I always say all therapy is a lifetime of work. We continually grow.
Yeah.
We evolve layer by layer.
Right.
So I do think in the past we used to think trauma is permanent. I'm traumatized. Where now, as you're suggesting, once you've done some therapy, some trauma treatment, you still get triggered.
Yes.
But as you said,
you got tools.
You don't stay there.
Yeah, you don't stay there.
And then in time, I think as you said that, it reminded me in time, there's just more and more letting go. It's over. Why are you holding on to this shame, this terror? It's the year, I always saying the year's 2022, and that part of you is stuck back in 2002, and you're still living, you're still believing and feeling as if the past has you. It's possessing you. Let it go because you have survived. The experience is over.
Yeah. When you're in the present tense, it's a lot easier to make sure you stay in the present tense. And when the past calls you back, you know, okay, I know what this is. I know how to deal with it, and I'll get back to the present eventually. And eventually means in a couple of hours or a couple of days. It just doesn't have to be a lingering, ongoing, have to deal with this now for the next. No.
But gosh, David, what you said is an important thing to teach a client is when are you in the past? When are you in a reactive state versus living in the present? Can you say more about that? That's a very important thing. Oops, I'm back there.
Yep.
I'm back there. I'm behaving as if. I use the example as if the depression is still going back in the 30s, whatever. But so say a couple more things on that. How do you recognize when you're triggered and back in the past versus in the present?
My experience with folks who get triggered know they're triggered. They know something has happened.
I'm in a reactive state.
Right. I've taken something from where I was is not where I am now. And so there's a conscious awareness of something big has changed and I don't like it. It's problematic.
Yes.
If they've been through treatment and they've got, for example, the safe place exercise in EMDR and or meditation, prayer, someone you can talk
grounding,
centering,
centering,
all those things that we had talked about, especially in episode 7.
It's a lifeline.
Yes, there are multiple tools, multiple ways to use them, and sometimes not all of them are available to you. If you've got that one guy like Mark has Brian sometimes that he is called, and sometimes Brian's not available. So you got to have tool number 2, 3, 4, 5, and know that at any given time, one of those things is going to work. And it's going to take me back to the present where I can do, much like you said, I love grounding. Just what color is that wall in front of you then?
Yes.
What
Take the
color's your
five
shoes?
senses.
Yeah.
Get out of your head and come into the present moment. Yeah, it's fun. And also talk about fun, Mark. It's fun to do grounding.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
God,
absolutely.
grounding
What
is
it
is
is.
named right now? Come into the get out of your head. I always say down, down, down. Tell me the first 5 things you see in this room that are square, and then name the next 5 sounds you hear, and then you can have essential oils and give them lemon, peppermint. So there's so I do all 5 senses. They got to smell. What's that? Get out of your head. Just become the senses. So anyway,
Right.
those tools, and also adding to that is you got to practice. You got to practice grounding. You got to
Oh,
practice
gosh, yes.
mindfulness. You
Hell
can't
yes, you do.
just never do it, and then when you get triggered. But anyway, the key to what you're saying, David, is know that whoa, I'm not myself anymore. I'm in a reactive state,
Right.
and then I help people identify what are you believing now. Since this is I call it, it's a psychological complex. A complex has taken over. A subpersonality has taken over, and when this is true, who do you become? What are your beliefs about yourself and the world? How are you feeling, and how are you behaving?
Right.
And then I think for a long time I was possessed by some of my those sub-personalities. I call possession is when you become them. But as you're saying, Dave, as you do the work, the healthy, wise adult says, whoa, who just took over the bus? That ain't me.
I don't like this.
I don't like this, nor does my wife,
Yeah.
nor my kids.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Where's my rosary?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not myself. So it's great when people can recognize that.
Absolutely.
Well, you were talking about grounding, and my wife Susan called me probably 6 weeks ago, and she was all upset that some knucklehead from some collection agency claiming to represent the IRS called her, and she was just had herself just worked up into a thick froth, thinking that I'm going to lose my fucking shit with her. So you know what we did?
What'd you do?
I said, Susan, only thing I want you to do. I said, are you sitting down? She said, no. I said, go find a comfortable place to sit and tell me when you're sitting. And she said, okay.
Wow.
Now what? I said, but I want your feet flat on the floor. I want you to sit back in the chair. I want you to interlace your fingers. And we did breathing. We call it tactical breathing in police work, or we call it 4 square breathing or whatever. And that's all we did. We just breathe in, 4 seconds in, held it for 4 seconds, pushed it out, held it out.
In psychology, we call that co-regulation.
Yep.
When a child
Okay.
is really upset, mom sits with the child and helps them re-regulate their nervous system.
Yeah,
They're upset.
she was-
So, Mark, that's a beautiful example
She
of
was so
sitting with
yeah.
Susan. And since you were grounded, but if you got upset, you would both be upset.
Oh, yes. Well, I can tell you several times throughout our marriage, and we just celebrated 33 years. Several times throughout
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I had just been just a total tirating fucking asshole with her. And there's really no need for that.
But who's that on your bus? You got to give him a name.
Um,
Who becomes a total
we-
fucking asshole?
I think we identified him. I tell you, it's just learned behavior. It was learned behavior
but
from
it's
my dad. 'Cause
But it's
I watched, like,
offensive behavior. It's an
Yeah,
offender. He's an
absolutely.
offender.
But today, I fucking hate that dude. I'm like, why did I treat her so badly? This was only just whatever, got the lawnmower stuck or whatever. It's like, why get upset? Because the only thing you're doing is you're pissing everyone off around you. You're not solving the problem.
But now, if you know IFS, you know why you were upset because
it-
that was making you feel small.
No,
Making
exactly.
You feel bad.
So what we did was we did the breathing exercise, and I said, "Are you good?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay. Well, we'll call the accountant and we'll work it out." "Are you mad?" I said, "No." What's the amount again? She told me, and I said, "Eh. We'll just get the taxes done. When I cashed out when I retired, worst come to worst is they're going to take that,
Right.
and if they do." Then they do. We'll just work out between you and I.
Right.
Because at the time, we didn't know if we were staying together or not. And I said, we're just working out. It's just fucking money. I would rather have you happy and healthy and not carrying this fucking burden around.
Right.
Lord knows I've done enough to that fucking woman over the past 4 years. This isn't one more thing I'm going to add to it.
Yeah.
But helping her ground, and we just really had a cool moment together.
Yeah.
So, good
Cool.
stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm curious. Do you take insurance?
Yes, I take insurance.
And like if a first responder comes in, is there concern about confidentiality, running the insurance through the county or whatever? Does that come up at all for you?
It's come up in one case in the last 11 years with
Oh, wow.
with a small company in a
Okay.
neighboring town where they were self-insured, and the higher ups in the company, he still came, but he didn't use his insurance because he
Okay.
was afraid of them snooping. But
Oh,
again,
yeah.
as you know, David, all you give the insurance company, but the insurance company is the CPT code and the procedure, but they could still know they're in therapy. But in the year 2022, it is horrendous if a company or a county would in any way hold it against an employee for seeking good mental health support.
Well, the sad thing.
But again, your question is excellent. Somebody say, I'm not going to give it to him because they'll find out and they'll know there's something wrong.
you just don't give them your insurance card.
Yeah.
Right, but their insurance. My feeling is that's part of their pay. You know, it's really tough.
Well, it is.
I only
but-
charge $80 an hour. I'm cheap, I think, as far as town goes.
Yeah.
But
Well,
how many
but-
people can afford $80 a week
Yeah.
Right.
when you're
Yeah.
paying $5 a gallon for gas? At any
Yeah,
rate,
exactly.
the insurance is a consideration, but it has not been a problem.
Okay.
For
okay.
people.
I know there's a lot of concern for a lot of the first responders I've met and have become my clients that they don't want to get it back to getting back to the department, to the superiors, that they're in therapy, that others look at them negatively, that the whole command structure looks at them negatively, their future ambitions might be to be an officer.
Fuck yes.
Hit-
Mark the comp.
Yeah.
You've been in the field recently.
Yeah.
I guess I'm naive enough, Dave, to think that that's not the case anymore. And on the other hand, they would support and encourage their first responders to debrief and work through their traumas. They would be better at their
Oh
work.
no, quite the opposite. Quite.
In
the
your
opposite.
experience,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, that's Cro-Magnon.
It is. And
Cro-Magnon.
sadly, yeah, I'm not going to say that. When I first started going to see David, I was in a horrible place. And I paid him cash, and I was very diligent about that. It's like, look, we're going to fucking do this. And David's like, oh yeah, you need this. But, yeah, you can pay me every week when you're here. And he absolutely was on my insurance, but I didn't want them motherfuckers doing it because sadly about it, you are in law enforcement, Mark the cop. Oh, yeah, and you're supposed to be this high integrity. Well, and I was.
Right.
And still am. But, you know, you have a hard time trusting others. And especially the people you think is, quote, your family. I was like, why would you want something that fucking dysfunctional and call it family?
Wow, gosh, Mark, it's really interesting, especially when you think of promotions. If you want to be promoted to a sergeant or promoted, would that be reflected? Would
Oh
be
yeah.
a-
Well, I tell you, and
I
so
guess I'm pretty
where I'm going
naive.
with this is that we had a drowning in the city, and it was a family that we're very fond of, and they're very active and huge supporters of the cops. And they had a set of twin boys, and the one boy drowned. Down here at the local gravel pit. He was out jet skiing. Well, he didn't have his life jacket on.
Yeah.
So, we went out and helped out, and we did a critical stress incident debriefing. We talked about in episode 6.
I think so.
Mike McGraw was there from Sydney.
Right.
And I'd been seeing David for a period of time, and they're like, how you doing, Mark? You all right? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. I was at therapy at 11 o'clock. This meeting was at 1, and at 11 o'clock I was in his office in Sydney. And everyone's head snapped around and like, are you fucking serious? So that was the day I decided to come out of the closet.
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
bad that, I'd been seeing David, 2 years?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah,
About
so
that
then I
time.
think 2012, 2013, this could have been. But
Out of the closet.
well, you have to be that diligent because you don't trust these motherfuckers. And then after the double fatal motorcycle crash at 25A in Maine, I had to go on FMLA. In 2019, we talked about it. I think you helped me sign the paperwork that I just need a mental health break. My plate was just piling up. It's like we talked about the 1-ton truck with a ton of bricks in the back. A cement truck backed up and dumped on me.
Right.
And that intersection 25A in Maine, it was a beautiful summer afternoon, and these people were just out for a ride. And this old woman hit them just like it was their job and killed them both. And what fucked me up was when I lived here on my street, only across the street, not in this house, my wife and I rode through that intersection all the fucking time.
I go through it every day.
Yeah, I avoid it.
I pay much more attention as I go through now because I drove by that day when you were out there at the Double Fatal.
Did you really?
Yes, I was at
Wow.
I had to run down to the office that day. It was a Sunday. Was it Sunday afternoon?
Yes, Sunday afternoon.
I had to
sure
run down
was.
and pick up something, and I drive by. I had no idea it was a Double Fatal because
Yeah.
it was a motorcycle, so I didn't see car. It didn't look I thought it was just a minor accident.
Yeah. The
But at any
bike,
rate,
the
I
bike
just-
went west. They went north. The car that hit them spun around it was like backed up into the parking place there at the pole.
I would just hope, Mark, that the departments are doing better at supporting their people.
They are. They're coming around.
Yeah.
But the problem is that it's what we call agency culture. People. We talked last time about my friend, that Dayton PD officer that got shot in the face, and heroism. Great job he did because he had to maintain, the guy and keep people away, and he's calling for his backup. And while he's bleeding, I watch the body cam. You just see the blood pouring out of him, and he should be heralded as a hero. But he was injured in the line of duty. But you don't have that support when you're mentally wounded and you come back to work. It's kind of like, pfft,
Right.
this
right.
fucking guy. Unlike my department, pfft, he took off for whatever. There's absolutely no support there. Am I bitter? You goddamn right I am. I'm as bitter as yesterday's coffee for what I went through in 2019. It really turned me, I don't want to say turn me off, but I realized it's time to go. This isn't my home anymore. It's kind of like going back to your parents' house after they moved out and the other family lives there.
Right.
It's like, who the fuck are you people? This used to be my home, but
Yeah.
I feel so alienated here now. I trust no one. Why am I here every day?
Yeah.
And my kids are like,
a
Dad,
big
it's time
double
to go, bro.
Yeah.
It's
Big
time to
double
get-
whammy.
Yeah,
Big
time-
double whammy.
Time to get the fuck out.
My experience is that there's a couple of departments in the area that seem to be doing an especially good job of emphasizing mental health support, paying for therapists when there's a critical incident that happens, having somebody not exactly on retainer, but more or less available to be called upon when needed to. Sydney City, Troy City both have developed a reputation in the area for being really supportive of mental health services for their staff, all their staff. But I know there's some other areas, other departments in the area that are not that at all and are very negative towards folks becoming clients and seeking mental health services and define the individual as weak, as probably there's something wrong with them. And so they might get the hours they don't want, the location, the car, whatever. Anything
Or
they can,
promotion if they're wanting to be promoted to more responsibility.
Oh, absolutely. That's the
happen.
first thing that's going to
Yeah,
shoot
that's-
them in the foot. Absolutely. They're going to question your judgment all the time.
Exactly. So it's still an ongoing thing, and I know it just depends. I mean, there's more enlightened departments than others, and more Cro-Magnon than others. I like that, and I think it is evolving forward. I really do.
Yes,
And
I
think-
definitely. The schools are the same way.
Yes,
We have,
absolutely.
critical. So now with police departments, you always have a critical incident debriefing, don't you? Within
They're supposed
72
to.
hours.
They're supposed to.
Yeah.
But
It's offered most of the time.
Yeah.
It's not mandatory. I don't think hardly ever.
Really?
So
Yeah.
sometimes people, like for example, there was a situation last year in Troy where 4 officers were involved in an incident, and 3 of them were like real interested in seeking, and the 4th was like, no.
Yeah. And again, you can't get into forcing people to do that.
Exactly.
It's not. But the fact that it's offered
Yeah.
over time, it is just so important to be able to sit around and talk about what the fuck happened and what were you feeling. But it's not therapy. It's just
Well, but
Sure.
everyone
getting together around to talk about
Right.
what you saw. What was it like? What was it like for you?
Well, because if the three of us sit here and just witness the same thing, you have a different perspective than David has, and David sees it differently than I did. And you know, sadly, with my incident in 2017, I had to run my own critical stress debriefing. My boss at the time couldn't have gave two flying fucks. Didn't even he walked by, hey, how's everybody doing? And just kept right on walking. And I'm like,
Wow.
you know, I got the SWAT commander in there.
Can't believe
and
he's trained in 2017. That's
wasn't
unfortunate.
He didn't give a fuck. He's the guy that says, if you go to therapy, you're weak. That was his attitude. You know, these guys, you know, they're just a bunch of pussies. And I'm like, you know what, dude? You've never been into this shit. You've never did anything critical. You've spent your career trying to get those eagles on your fucking collar, and that's it. You just did what you had to do. You flew above the surface and under the radar. You know, you weren't out here, and I can never ever remember this guy being in a fight or some type of act of violence where you had to tune a motherfucker up, or you had to get hands on the guy, or you're getting your ass kicked. I mean, hell, I'm not some big Billy badass. I'm sure as a fuck not a fighter.
Yeah.
You know, I ain't afraid of anything. Am I scared? Oh, I've been scared fucking plenty. You know, but you push through that, and I can't ever remember the entire 20 years I would say and worked with that dude that he was ever in the middle of any of that. You know, we go out and get drunk and tell war stories, and you don't never heard him talking about, yeah, man, me and this motherfucker were, you know, at it down here. Never hear anything like that out of him. So he didn't appreciate what it was, and the thing the industry right now has lost the human factor. And here's why. There's this attitude right now where we need to over-discipline everybody for minor infractions. It's like, well, why are you bringing fucking hammer when all you need is a feather? Or, you know, the guy...
You're speaking in general with the law enforcement?
Yeah, oh, well, yeah. I mean, you know, the things, we need to hold these bad cops accountable, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, Piqua had a accidental discharge, the city of Piqua did, and couple of my colleagues were like, you know, what's disciplines this guy going? Well, he got a written reprimand. And they're like, that's it? I'm like, well, if it had been my former agency, they'd have fired him and then went home and burned his fucking house down.
Yeah.
You know, that's the kind of discipline that they would have done. But, you know, the guy was a model employee, didn't do anything wrong. He fucked up.
Yeah.
So, you know, a couple people got hurt and you fucked up. Here's your rip.
Yeah.
And go on and keep doing good work.
This is kind of related here. Just I don't want to, Dave. I know you had a couple of things here, but what I found fascinating over the years with first responders is they will go to accident after accident, fire after fire, critical incident after critical incident, and they're not affected by it. But just this one time, they lose their shit. Isn't that interesting, David? Because that's what trauma is. That. The look on their face, the age, what they were wearing, somehow takes them, as you said, took them back to the past. It's fascinating that they see all these terrible things and they deal with it as professionals, and they may need to debrief about it. It's upsetting, but it does not trigger them. But then the big one happens, and they're completely debilitated.
And the fucking
so what's your reading of that? Is that do you see that happen?
Well, I think Mark's a great example. We were working on one.
Is that good or bad?
That's a good example. It's a good thing, bro.
Okay.
Always a good thing. We had a very specific focus that we were working on, and once we approached it and got into it, the head opened up, and he had 20 incidents. All those ones that he'd gone to and didn't affect him had affected him. But it was like, as Mark has described it,
I'll go ahead and pop it.
It's a matter of accumulation. It's a matter of how many of those do you go through before one, which might be the size of a grain of sand compared to the one you just went through 5 minutes ago.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden that grain of sand explodes the whole thing because that reservoir of experience is full.
Yes.
And so the littlest thing, and you got the whole damn thing overflowing.
You sound like my chiropractor. That's what happens with back trouble.
Yeah.
You know, cumulatively, little by little, you're straining it, and then suddenly you bend over and you can't get up. But
Yeah.
but he says it's been happening along. So I see. So that's it too. I was thinking more it was just the particular circumstances triggered them, but also you're saying no, it's cumulative. You can't see mayhem every day
Right.
as a caring person.
And not have
Be
it touch
affected
you.
by it.
Yeah. It's going to touch you. It's going to move you.
Right. The thing that brought me to David's office first time was a horrible suicide scene that I went to Louis Deeds. We've all talked about it in my sessions with both of you, and through that, that's where what I had repressed and didn't realize it until we started doing this show, because I thought that my first sessions with David were about that incident, and he's like, no. Our first sessions was about the day your mother died, and what a shit show that was, and a huge fucking bag of trauma shit that you
And
were
then
going
from
through.
there we can go back to
Right.
Little Marky.
Correct. Yeah, oh, yeah, exactly. The shit that went on there. But the cumulative stress, and once you start into it, it's just like fucking dominoes. And that's where, when they talked about in past episodes, to where, the average person has 2, maybe 3 big traumas in their life, and a first responder has 800. And being a year out, April, what is this? June. So a year and 3 months out, I'm still dreaming cop. Had a big fucking cop dream the other night. I was out working a crash on the interstate.
We all dread it when we see the sirens. Someone's got to clean up that mess.
Yeah,
That's right.
and I knew what triggered it, because I have a train-to-trainer class, an advanced driving instructor class I'm training, and we were talking about traffic incident management that day, and I was telling the guys about you need to be implementing this, and we worked very well with our local post of the highway patrol, and we worked. That was one beautiful thing about working in Miami County, is how well all the agencies get along together, and we had just a passing conversation, and sure shitting that night, I was dreaming cop again. I was back out on the road, and I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore.
No.
I want to be done. I want to be a driving guy now.
And the nice news is you got up in the morning, you didn't have to put on your gun belt.
Fuck yes.
Yes, there you go.
Best thing about it.
Yes.
Gentlemen, we are almost at the end. Do you want to run us out, and we'll stay here? Got time for episode 2, Jerry?
Sure.
Absolutely great.
Cool. Shall we do the outro or just keep rolling?
Well, let's go ahead and outro out.
Outro
Donnie
out?
can throw the music on, and then stay tuned, folks, because this is a live recording in episode 8. Well, we're episode 8, but the next one's going to be episode 9.
That's exactly
Right.
right.
9, not German for no. There we go. All right, sir, go ahead.
May your days and nights find you strong and safe. May you take your place as your family's face. As you do the shit that we won't do, as you embrace the risk you must go through, may you grow in strength and heal and find your heart, your soul, and your mind. You look at your life and grin. You have a home, the shield within.